أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen, wa la udwana illa ala al-zalimin. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, sallallahu alayhi, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi, wa man da'a bi da'watihi wa istanna bi sunnati, ila yawm ad-din, sallam tasliman kathira. Amma ba'd. فأوصيكم ونفسي بالتقوى الله عز وجل والسمع والطاعة ويقول الحق سبحانه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون. All praises are due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and surely the best reward ultimately is for those who have the consciousness of Allah. Surely there is no animosity except for the oppressor. And I bear witness that Allah is one and has no partners, and that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, is his servant and his last messenger. May Allah constantly send peace and blessings to Muhammad, to his companions, to his family, to all those who call to his way and establish his sunnah to the day of judgment. As to what follows, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us in his mighty book ayat. He has given us signs, verses to meet the circumstances that we are living in. There are times when believers and the earth is surrounded with fear. There are other times of peace. There are times of plenty. There are times of scarcity. But for all of these circumstances, the revelation has been designed in order to give us a formula, to give us a reminder about how we should be responding to the ever-changing circumstances that we are living in. And in Surah to Yunus, verse 62 to 64, two important ayahs revealed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the believers, come at a time when people are surrounded by fear. And this corresponds to the days that we are living in, because they say as we go into the dark winter, and these terms are supposed to put fear in our hearts, many people feel depression, they feel anxiety, they feel uneasy. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, telling us, now surely the friends of Allah, they shall have no fear, nor shall they grieve. Those who believe and guard against evil through the consciousness of Allah. The next verse continues on, and it gives even more glad tidings to us, bushra to us. Allah tells us, Lahumul bushra fil hayat ad-dunya wa fil akhirah, la tabdila li kalimatillah. Dhalika huwa al-fawz al-azim. Allah continues and tells us that the believers, that those who are described as the awliya, that they have good news in the life of this world and in the hereafter. There is no replacing or changing the words of Allah, for this is the great achievement. And so this verse is extremely important to us, because many times average believers, simple believers as ourselves, we feel overwhelmed by the circumstances and think that it is only a special group of people who are protected by Allah. But Allah tells us, Allah and the awliya Allah, that the awliya, plural of wali, the friends of Allah, that they are not afraid, nor should they be sad. So this deals with fear, which is the present, and sadness, which is the past. And so it gives a positive message for the awliya. Who are the awliya? Alladhina amanu wa kanu yattaqun. It is not a special society of people. It is not people with a certain length on their beard or a certain height in their hat. But it is those who are described as believers. And this belief moves into taqwa. A beautiful way of expressing it Allah has given us, alladhina amanu wa kanu yattaqun. So they believe in the message of Allah theoretically and in their life, and this belief in Allah's angels and His books and His qadar and all of the things we believe in, wa kanu yattaqun, it becomes consciousness of Allah. It interprets itself into our lives. And this is something which is attainable by all of us. It is iman and taqwa. And the believers, right from the beginning, had to face many different obstacles. But they believed in the words of Allah. They believed in the guidance given through the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. And they were able to overcome unbelievable difficulties. And yes, even the pandemic, even disease. What we are going through now is nothing new for our ummah. And it is reported that when the Prophet ﷺ and his companions made the hijrah to Yathrib, in Yathrib was a type of fever. It was a disease that was there in the area where, in the high mountainous area of Yathrib, and it was a well-known fever. And when they reached into Medina, many of the believers who had lived in Mecca, that is a warm place all year round, started to fall down with this fever. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua to Allah Azza wa Jal to raise this fever off the backs of the believers. Following this, right afterwards in the time of the Khulafa al-Rashideen, there was the terrible ta'un of Amwas, this terrible plague that hit the world, and especially was hitting the area of Bilad al-Sham. And the Muslims had responded to the Romans and entered into Syria. But they believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ had told them that anybody who dies from the plague, who dies from this disease, is shaheed. That person is getting a high position as a martyr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And during this plague of Amwas, somewhere around 25,000 people perished during this time under the plague. And that included great Sahaba like Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, radiallahu anhuma, and other illustrious companions, holding their ground for Islam, regardless of the circumstances. 30 years later, another plague broke out in Kufa, which Ali radiallahu anh had made the capital of Islam. He switched it to Kufa in Iraq. But a plague broke out in that area. The believers held their ground. 20 years later, in Jarif in Iraq, another great plague came about. This is 68 years after the Hijrah. And it was so violent that at certain points for a 3-day period, it is reported that over 70,000 people per day died from the plague. And this is a majority Muslim area. This is where Islam had settled, but it is a test. It is part of the imtihan that we are all going through. And we recognize if we are struck by this, it is the will of Allah, but we seek refuge in Allah Azza wa Jal. And the Prophet ﷺ has gave us dua that we should read, things that we should be reading. And in these days, we should read these and many more every day at Maghrib, especially at Fajr. Bismillahi alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama' wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. That in the name of Allah, through whose name nothing in this world can harm you. And He is the one who hears all things and He knows all things. A'udhu bi kalimatillahi tammat min sharri ma khalaq. Seek refuge through the complete words of Allah from the evil He has created. And the fact that He has created it means He has allowed it to come about in the creation, and that includes COVID-19. And so we should be reading these dua constantly with our salawat, and also with the different chapters. We should be constantly strengthening ourselves, spirituality. But recognize that this pandemic, one of the worst aspects of the pandemic we are living in, is not a physical pandemic, but it is a pandemic of evil. It is evil thinking and evil ideologies. And it is killing not the bodies of people, but killing their hearts. The evil plague of racism, the evil plague of Islamophobia, the evil plague of hatreds, which are stalking the land. And even here in Canada, a country known to be one of the most peaceful places, a beautiful place to live, and with people within our leadership in this country who have some balance, who stand up for minority peoples, even though even in this part of the world, this plague, this ideological plague is spreading. And one of the forms of this pandemic is white supremacy. Recent information has come out about this. We are suffering, we are still reeling with the murder of our brother Muhammad Aslam Zafis, who was killed at the IMO on September 12th of this year by a white supremacist. This is not just somebody with a mental issue. That's what they tend to say if a murder is done by a person of European origin. It is not just a person with mental issues. It is a person who is a known white supremacist, and his organization has been identified. And it is the organization, the group of 09A. This is the order of the 9 angles. This is a Nazi, satanic Nazi cult, which practices paganism, and they praise Hitler. Wal-iyadhu billah. And now it has come out to us clearly that there are over 300 of these white supremacist organizations in Canada that are functioning in Canada. Amongst them, the 3 Percenters, which is an armed militia. Another one called the Base, a Nazi group that wants to destabilize the whole system. But in this time, when fear is being spread, Muslims, as we have been encouraged and given an example from the beginning, we hold the line. We hold on. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah all together. Be not divided. And I want to look at 3 areas that we can do. We want to know what can we do personally, because everybody can do something, not just organizations. And this might be a different approach, but 3 areas I want to focus on. Number 1, we should intensify in feeding the poor and taking care of needy people. Intensify in this, because the more of the barakah and the blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we gain is the stronger we are spiritually, and also in focusing on those suffering in the ummah. We are strengthening our nation under this pandemic. Number 2, we need to see it as part of our faith. Just like we make our prayers, just like we come to Jummah, to defend the name of Islam and to defend other Muslims. And that means even right here. And when we have organizations like the NCCM, the National Council of Canadian Muslims, who are coming forward and struggling clearly against the white supremacy, we need to be part of this action. And any action that is defending Muslims and defending the name of Islam. 3, we need to intensify in spreading the message of Islam. This is not a time to sit down and hide and roll over, but it's a time any way we possibly can to involve ourselves in the spreading of Islam, in calling to the good and forbidding evil. We need to intensify in this very dangerous period that we are living in. The believers in the first days went through the darkest of winters, but they held the line. And after the Battle of Uhud, this is a classical example enshrined in the Quran. After the Battle of Uhud, the Quraysh, although they retreated, they started to gather themselves together in a place called Hamra al-Asad. And the words came to the believers that a large body is assembling itself, a large group. And this is a time when they had suffered tremendous loss. They had lost illustrious companions, but they held the ground. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in Surah Ali Imran, describing them, الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسِ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Those who were said to, the people had said to them, and they were warned that your enemies have gathered themselves together. They mobilized their forces against you, but this only increased their faith. And they said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. They said that Allah is sufficient for us. He is the best to protect. And they took that stand, and Allah put fear into the hearts and confusion into the hearts of the unbelievers. And the Muslims were safe. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed those who fell down as shuhada in the time of Uhud and maintained our faith. And so we are in this circumstance. And the Prophet ﷺ, on many occasions, this has come as a type of constant dhikr that we can be making with our dhikrs of tawheed and salawat. And that is Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. You see something happening in the world? Amantu billahi wa rasuli. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. These are the first things that need to come to our tongues. Allah is sufficient for us. He is the best to protect us. And so as we enter this time period, we look at it as a chance to gain the blessing of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we look at it as a type of purification of this earth, as it was purified in the past. and a chance for Muslims to gather themselves together, to rejuvenate themselves, and to come back into a balanced form of Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen our hearts and strengthen our families in this time of darkness. May Allah protect our children, protect our innocent and weak in this time of darkness. May Allah raise up leadership that can take us from darkness into light. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the strength and the tawfiq to live by the light and to die by the light. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب استغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله الواحد الأحد الفرد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد وأصلي وأسلم على سيد الأولين والآخرين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. يقول الحق سبحانه مخبرا وعامرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وارض الله عن الخلفاء الراشدين أبو بكر عمر عثمان وعلي وعنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم اصرف عنا البلاء والوباء والمحن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. اللهم اصرف عنا البلاء والوباء والمحن. اللهم اصرف عنا البلاء والوباء والمحن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. عباد الله يرحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. قوموا إلى صلاتكم يرحمكم الله.